So here we are on March the 16th. Isn't that an interesting date? 3/16/16. Hi, everyone. I'm Dave Williams, your host from findyournewnormal.com. Glad you've joined us again for our regular Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern show on coping with cancer. We have a lot of fun every week on talking casually about the issues that cancer patients and survivors and caregivers have to deal with as they meander along that journey from diagnosis into treatment, post-treatment, survivorship, and then hopefully back into a state of wellness and vitality. And I look at the world through the eyes of a cancer survivor, and every week we try to bring you resources and the information to deal with cancer. And I try to have a really interesting co-host. And as those of you who've been following us, Gina Costa-Goldfarb has been by my side for a number of months, but she's been so fortuitously lucky with a huge amount of business and things that she's on. She needs to take a few weeks sabbatical from us. So I put out the please help me button with the Batman light to the sky. And Hayley Dubin came sailing along. She was a guest of us a few weeks ago. Some of you may recognize her face. And Hayley and I are here today to talk about what's this transition that you must go through from a cancer patient to cancer survivor. So before we get into today's topic, Hayley, why don't you say hello to our audience this week? Tell them a little bit about yourself and why in the world did you answer my bat signal?
Well, hi, everyone. I'm happy to be here. My name's Hayley Dubin, and I work with people who have finished treatment for cancer and have fear around recurrence. And I help them gain confidence that they will remain healthy so they can fully live the joyful, vibrant life that's waiting for them. So, Dave told me that he needed a co-host, and I really had fun a couple of weeks ago when he interviewed me, and I thought, you know what, I'll give it a shot. So I'm happy to be here and excited to talk to you all.
So there in the audience, be friendly to Hayley, support her. She's one thing to be a guest, another thing to be a co-host, and and those of you who watch us every week know that we look at this from a very casual, informative discussion perspective. We talk about the topic for a few minutes, try to get you to ask questions in the text chat. If you have particular questions, just type in /Q, leave a space and put your question, and then Hayley and I will see it. And in a few minutes, we'll open up the next seat, and we will, allow you to come on camera to interact with us and try to talk about this journey today that patients are going through. Those of you that are watching on the replay, thanks very much. All the replays are on the Find Your New Normal, findyournewnormal.com site. We've got everything listed. And so, please look at our past broadcasts. And today, if you are live, interact with us because this is a very interesting topic. So back to you, Hayley. When you and I were talking about this journey that you see, and I love the term that you use for yourself, although you've got a training in integrative health and you look at wellness from a health perspective, you also look at it from a life perspective, and you call yourself a cancer recovery coach. And I really love that term recovery because as a person, still in treatment and dealing with, what cancer means, there is this element of recovery, but a transition of getting away from thinking of yourself as a patient to a survivor and hopefully a person who's well and vital and living a great life. So could you reflect a little bit of what you've seen that patients have to go through to transit to being well?
Absolutely. So when I think of recovery, it's really looking at body, mind, and spirit, looking at us as a whole person. And, when people finish with treatment, often they are, they're scared, they feel alone. All of a sudden, they're not in the constant care of their doctors or nurses. And a lot of times their support system goes away because they think, oh, they're back in their normal life and life goes on and that's it. So it's really challenging for people. I definitely see a lot of people that are just very anxiety ridden because they just went through a traumatic experience. I mean, as you know, cancer is a very traumatic experience. And, people just tend to really get in their heads about, how am I going to get well again? Am I ever going to be the same?
I'm going to stop you right there because that's the phrase that gets a lot of people. Will I ever be the same? And the caregivers, your family, your friends around you tend to give you that impression as well. Well, hey, you've been given you're free from cancer diagnosis, so let's get back to where you were. Now, everyone knows my answer on that. I don't know how in the world you go back. So why do we want to be the same after we've just come through this incredible meandering journey?
Well, I think people want a sense of normalcy because their life has been turned upside down. But I think also when they reflect on everything, when they really sit with themselves and reflect, they realize that their lives won't be the same. They could be better. It doesn't mean that your life there's not going to be any sense of normalcy. It eventually, there is a sense of normalcy, but to me, you learn and grow from your cancer experience. And those are the people I see that do the best and thrive when they're really willing to look at themselves.
With this thing called normalcy, right? You're trying to define it. I mean, here I am multiple years after the first diagnosis, and I'm still trying to figure out what is normal because there's constant things that I have to adapt to. And that's why I called my site Finding Your New Normal. But at the beginning, I thought I would find it. But it seems to be a constant growth that as I develop this, I redefine normal. And I like what Gina called her website was New Beginnings with Gina, because she was saying it was a new beginning. And I like that concept because although I'm trying to find a new normal, I started off with the expectation that I would find it. And I'm sure I can.
Yeah. Well, you're saying it right there, new normal. So, we're constantly changing and growing. Nothing stays the same. So I think we just have to redefine what normal is.
And it's an all-encompassing area, isn't it? Because as you've told me and others have told me, it's not just the healthy side of things, which you tend to jump right into because it's a medical issue. Your doctors have been with you. You've got a big, robust oncology team teaching you about disease and health. And then the nutritionists come in and they start talking about a healthy lifestyle and a lifestyle change. And so your first entry into recovery is looking at these so-called health issues. But as you said in your opening remarks, there's more to that. There's the spiritual change because you've asked the big questions of, am I going to live? Am I going to die? If I'm going to live, who the heck am I? Who was I? What do I have to adapt to? If I'm going back to work, and I see in our audience, Beth is with us today, and she focuses in on helping cancer patients, get back into the workplace, then you've got work-related issues that are going to be part of helping you find a new normal. If you've had relationship problems with your significant other or your children, or have not had them, and they suddenly materialize, then you've got relationship issues, and on and on and on. I mean, it seems to be a number of new cards that you've been dealt that you've got to put on the table and play them in a different way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I think with anything, it's about creating a new life, a new way of looking at things. And, really what they say is our thoughts create a feeling and our feeling creates reality. So sometimes it's just about changing our thoughts. I know that's not always an easy thing to do, but it's definitely, something I work on with my clients.
You can do it. There's been enough health people on this show that've gotten me to eat kale. So I've actually ate it, and now they're after me to do a kale smoothie, so
Great.
You can change, but it is very difficult to do.
Yeah. And, the one thing I like to tell people and to start off with is just really define your big why. And why do you want to change? Why, whether it's weight loss or, whatever goal you have in mind, what is your big reason for wanting that? Because if we just say, oh, I want to lose weight so I look good, usually you diet for a little bit, but you go back to your habits. But you really need a big reason that will override all your other behavior patterns.
And it's more than just an attitude shift. And I'll reinforce the kind of work you do, because I didn't understand it at the beginning, but I've certainly got a good grasp now that if you want to make a life change, it's one thing to be aware of it. And I always use myself as an example because I'm narcissistic. I like talking about myself. The audience knows that. And, the big issue was recognizing that I have to change my life, and nutrition has to be a change. I can write you a thesis now on all the things I'm supposed to do, but I don't do them because of my habits. And what I need is a coach, which is what you and a lot of other people that we've met on this show do, is try to explain to our audience, whether you're a patient or a caregiver or a survivor, often you can't do it on your own. You need that coach that's helping you recognize what your goal is and making it happen. So you're a vital part of the change process that I wasn't told about when I graduated from the oncology team. They said, go forth, young man, get up and get on with your life. But they didn't tell me that, you're going to have these issues to adapt to as you transit from thinking of yourself as a patient to thinking of yourself as a healthy, vital survivor. They should have also said, and here's some coach expertise that'll help you along the way. Are you sensing at all that people are learning that coaches exist, first off, and secondly, they're worthwhile having by your side?
Yeah, I still think a lot of people don't know about health coaches, but when they do learn about it, they really do see the value, because people know what they should be doing. Oh, I should be eating better. I should lose weight. I should be exercising. But it's a matter of changing habits, your daily habits, and really doing it and having someone hold you accountable and be there for you to support you and make small actionable goals each time you meet, so it's not too overwhelming.
For sure. And I think, we're setting the stage, and I recognize some of the people in the audience. So I'm going to open up the seat. And I know Beth is there as a coach, and Paula's there. I hope Paula wants to come on camera today because she has a spiritual a focus of helping people in the healing process. So I hope we get some discussion coming from some of our audience members to add to what you and I are talking about. Oh, look, Beth Williams wants to join us, and there's no relationship.
Definitely
I'm in Toronto, she's in Chicago. We're probably cousins of some sort. But Beth Williams has joined us, and you're a little low. Could you just move your camera down a tad bit? There you go.
Is that better?
There, we can see a little bit better.
There we go.
So tell our audience a little about you and join our conversation.
Well, I was fortunate to have a brain tumor to wake me up.
Of course you did. Okay.
That's how I think of it. And so it was my wake-up call to finally do what I love to do, which is coaching. And so when I was finishing my year of chemo, I finally found the coaching program that I was perfect for me, and I've become a coach. And I love working with people who have careers, professionals and leaders, and so I help them create the kinds of environments that they want to work in, and who they want to be, and so forth. And one tangent of that is working with survivors, because I had a similar experience as Dave did, and that is, you finish all your treatments and you've become pretty friendly with all the technicians and the nurses and so forth. And then all of a sudden, there you are, off to fend for yourself. And it felt to me like there was a big gap there between being the patient and being a survivor and getting on with my life. And I was fortunate that I knew what I wanted to do. I just didn't know exactly how to go about it. It would have been great
and
to
you do
know.
more than just direct and set goals and motivate Hayley and Beth. I think the both of you provide a layer of support, right? I mean, it's
Right.
not just, hey, you're my weight loss coach and I show up on Friday and we measure how much I've lost. I mean, there's a lot more to that, right?
Exactly.
Right. And as Hayley was talking about, this whole mind, body, spirit link is so important, because we are more than what we do. We are, and our thoughts lead to trigger our emotions lead to our actions and outcomes. And then there's the whole spiritual piece that really came into my consciousness after the survival bit. And that just adds a whole different layer of possibilities and peace of mind that I didn't experience without it.
What was the big surprise for both of you, or when you're working with clients? Have you ever been surprised by what the discussion is and what the issues are? Nothing jumps out at you?
I guess what stands out to me is a lot of people think they just need help with one aspect, like nutrition. That's usually their big thing.
Right.
Tell me what to eat and what not to eat and that kind of thing. But as we talked about, there's so much more than that. And they often find that, maybe a relationship's not going well, that they really haven't thought that much about, but it's really bothering them. So, usually something like that comes out, and then they're so much more able to take, I keep saying take control of their health, but they feel more empowered to take action, really, when it comes to their health. So I think that's what surprises me the most. Some people can be so, I don't know if it's closed or it's a shield, that, I'm fine and I don't want to really talk about it. Right. I just want to know what I should eat and what I shouldn't eat.
And usually
that's
kind of that's the protective shield on the outside. So there are some, what surprised me is how some of the issues are the same, and yet the way they show up is different. So when you dig under the surface, on an emotional level, you start finding all the connections.
Yeah.
And the deeper meaning, the deeper issues, and so forth. And some people aren't willing to dig deeper. My executive coaching clients sometimes just have those tangible goals that they want to meet, and that's what they want. And so that's what they're willing to work on. It seems to me that people who have been faced with their own mortality are a little bit more open on some levels, because that raw emotion, the whole spirituality piece, mind, body, spirit, it all comes together, and it can be really overwhelming. And sometimes they just need some grounding. just
Yeah, I
having
mean,
a way
that
to ground
grounding is
yourself.
so important to find a
Yes.
center, to find a balance.
Completely.
In my case, and in the other patients I've talked to, because I'm up at the hospital every week or so, and I talk and see what other people are doing, and we all seem to be surprised by the emotional roller coaster that we thought we were in hey, I'm sick, I've got a problem, I've been diagnosed, I'm being treated, I get better, I move on, a very linear path. But in reality, myself and the other people I've talked to, we tend to have a psychosocial ride that we're constantly on, where some days everything is fine, everything is balanced, and we know what's going on. And other days you start to take stock of what recovery you are or not making, what issues have now come into your program, what pains or anxieties you're trying to deal with, and you get into a low or melancholic or even depressive state. And so that, hey, I thought I was okay, and now I'm not okay. And then, oh, wait a minute, I'm going to be okay. I'm really glad I've surrounded myself with some support people that have different layers of ventilation capability. Some people that I can talk to and say exactly what I'm dealing with. Others that are like yourselves, coaches who don't want to get into therapy or counseling, but can coach and move forward. And then there are the psychotherapists, the psychologists, the social workers who can get into more of the psychological mental distress issues. That there's a team of people that often you want to be connected with to deal with all of these different issues.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt about it. I will have my clients make up a healthcare team. If they don't have one, then we brainstorm and, have a general practitioner that you can ask questions to and that doesn't get annoyed because there's many, no offense, yes, but that do get frustrated with you if you have too many questions or you've done research on something. And
don't be informed. You can't do that.
In competition.
Exactly. Right. And then to have other practitioners, maybe a naturopath or maybe, like you said, a psychologist. So to have a whole support system, I think is key. So you feel like all your needs are being met.
Don't lose that thought. I just want to direct a hello to Paul, who's trying to get in. You are trying to get there, but you're not connecting. So two things. One, see if you can use a Chrome browser. 2, refresh your browser. And 3, when you begin to connect, you should see a little icon on the top of the screen or message asking you to connect your microphone and your camera. So Paula, just there you go. See if any of those are things that you could do. So back to Hayley and Beth, that the surprise or the team that you need to handle those surprises for me, hasn't gone away. It, in fact, needs to be strengthened, moved on. In your practices, do you find that people do get through this, or are you constantly in a surprise mode, riding the roller coaster and never getting off? Am I, an exception, or in general, do people just have a ride, lots of fun for 4 or 5 times and get off, but others of us have to stay on that for a long period of time? What's your experience?
Hayley, what do you think?
You want to ask me that? Well, everyone is so different, but I do think that it is cyclical. You get in phases where you feel like you're on the right path and things are going well, and then you might have a bump in the road. You might have a weird pain and you have to go to the doctor and your, anxiety levels through the roof. So all these things that cancer survivors go through are so normal because, like I said before, it was a traumatic experience. It wasn't something that just, okay, you had a little something, got it removed, and you're fine. It takes a big emotional impact. Toll. So, I think depending on the person, there's a lot of varieties in how people handle it. So you just have to really focus on what your client needs at that time, because needs change often. That's for sure.
I've been interviewing
what do you say,
people
Beth?
to write a book on survivorship and resilience. And one of the things that surprised me is that there are certain types of cancer that some of the people I've talked to almost feel guilty that they've had it so easy. And I was one of those too, because even though I had brain cancer, I didn't acknowledge it as such for a couple of years.
Well, that's easy cancer. Did anyone tell you losing your brain not a problem at all?
But I've talked with people who have had skin cancer or thyroid cancer, and they know that those are much more treatable than some of the other cancers. And there's almost a sense of guilt from some people that they had it so easy or that it's so curable. And so they kind of dismiss their experience as not that big a deal. And then I've talked with others with the same type of cancer, and they're wondering when the other shoe will drop. And so it's so individual, as you were saying, Hayley, that you just never know. You just have to be willing and able to be there wherever they are.
And don't forget, those in the audience, if you have a comment to make, just type it in there. We're watching the text stream, and make it /Q if you want a question. We're getting some compliments. We're talking about things that seem to be meaningful to our audience, so that's a good thing. But it is this whole journey that we on definitely is different for everyone. I certainly at the beginning thought, oh, you got cancer. Everyone's had cancer. I'll talk to other cancer patients and I'll learn what it's all about. And it turns out that everyone's journey is different. The fact that I was in hospital for 15 months put me on the extreme. You know, people go, well, you don't go to hospital for 15 months. So others, go in and they've got a little bit of attention given to them, and then they struggle through that and they get on with it. Every journey is different.
It is, for sure.
Completely.
What about fear of recurrence? That seems to be a big issue that keeps coming up, because we're talking about those watching the replay or coming in late. We're trying to talk about the journey of transitioning from patient to survivorship, and that often we get lost in that transition. And I love this topic because I'm still lost and trying to find my way through the maze. Fear of recurrence is one of the things that has been bothering me constantly during the journey. And I'm wondering, Hayley, Beth, is that something that you hear a lot of when you work with people? We're all sitting there wondering when it's coming back.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I hear frequently. And I think it's really about strategizing and thinking of ways to help with that. If we practice gratitude, it's hard to be fearful when we're being present and being grateful for our lives. So even, a gratitude journal, writing 5 things you're grateful for every day. Just having faith that you're going through this for a reason, and then something's good is going to come out of it. But yes, it's very extremely common with the people that I coach.
Yes,
do you agree
with that? Is the whole insurance piece of it in the U.S. with insurance coverage all over the place. And I was one of those people who, because they had found the glioma in my brain years before, when I lost my job, I didn't realize that when I didn't continue with COBRA coverage, that I became uninsurable. And so then when I was ready to get insurance, I couldn't get insurance. So there are a number of people I've spoken to who feel stuck in a job because they have insurance, and they're afraid that if they move to a new job, something will happen with their insurance. And that in itself just keeps people so on edge and insecure. That to me is one of the downsides of the way we run our healthcare system in the US, is that people shouldn't have to be worried about whether they can get the healthcare that they need if they should have a recurrence.
We're all cancer survivors, the three of us
Absolutely.
here, and I know a number of the people in the audience. I recognize their handles, so I know they're survivors as well. What have you done in your life to cope with that fear? I mean, Hayley's saying gratitude journal. Are there other techniques, that you've done for yourself or recommend to patients to help to deal with those spikes in anxiety?
Well, for me personally, I just have this belief that everything is going to be all right. And I've had it since the very beginning for whatever reason. And that ties into the spirituality piece, I guess. And yet there are times when something will happen. And for example, I made the mistake once in having my MRI follow-up done 1 week, and my oncologist appointment wasn't until the following week. And usually it's like maybe a day in between or the same day. And I realized then not to do that again because even though I don't have this fear ongoingly, what I did notice is that the anxiety crept up. And by the time I had my oncologist appointment, I was beside myself. I was like, okay, none of that. We won't go there again. So there are things, little strategies and tactics that one can do and use to fend off some of that. But I think that one of the benefits of having a coach is to be able to talk about the fears and have some emotion behind it. One of the things that I make clear to my clients is, if you're emotional, that's fine. I can deal with it. I'm not breakable here. So feel, whatever you're feeling is okay. And just being able to talk about it, I think, helps diminish it when it's out in the light of day, as opposed to just constantly revolving in your head all by yourself. That isolation, I think, is really bad.
And I should share to the audience that there are tools that are available to help you. So that, you certainly got your immediate family, your caregivers that can provide support. And now, as we've been talking, there are cancer coaches that are there trained to work you through it. But there are two websites that those of you who aren't aware of them should go visit them. One is the Well Beyond This system, wellbeyondthis.com. It's in beta right now, and they're taking some users on board. It's developed by IPEC, a very professional life coaching organization, and have spent a number of years building this system, and now they're field testing it. That brings in a 7-step process to managing stress and anxiety using the IPEC core energy principles. And it looks in looking at their system and what they've got, it as a system that you can interact with interactive questionnaires, metric reports, interaction with a support group, a community to talk to, and some coaches. It looks pretty interesting as a solution. And then there's cansurround.com. Brand new, launched around the beginning of the new year. They've only got a few hundred people in detailed beta testing, and it's a heavily psychosocial site that is a multimedia site that when you go into it, it asks you to define your state of wellness and then brings you in based on the stress and anxiety that you're dealing with either over to articles or over to support group or into meditation exercises. Some are self-guided, others over to multimedia, audio and video for calming meditation. It's a very different and unique approach to helping you manage those spikes of emotional stress that you face on this roller coaster, that can then be coupled with your professional group from the professional help from the cancer coaches, or if you're still connected back to the survivorship clinic at your hospital, working with their social psych department or their social worker team. So I've now found at least 2 very professional sites with years of development, proper background training and credentialing to support you so that you're not alone. So as I say, you got your family, you've got your cancer coach, you've got some tools, and you've got all the traditional support groups that you can, be involved in. Paula is so diligent. I hope she can figure out what the technology issue is, because she's tried 3 times to come on. And I know that this topic is one of her topics, and she would have lots to say. But if not this week, next week. No, it's not about that. It's just her connection coming on. Okay. But don't worry, audience. This is a 2-part show. Although we didn't say it at the beginning, this one on dealing with transition and moving into survivorship, we're talking and laying the foundation. But next week, we've got Bill Aaron coming on, who just finished writing a book, interviewing 120 survivors. And he's going to be on talking to us about what he's discovered in talking to the whole group, similar to what Beth is doing with all the interviews that Beth has been doing with survivors. And we're trying to make sure that those of you either live today or on the replays get a perspective that you're not alone. One of our philosophies here every week is the best way to help yourself is to put an arm around somebody else. And that's what we're trying to do, is give you those resources, those things that can help you deal with the many, many unique issues to you as you move along with this very, very odd transition. It's something that you've got to go through, but it comes and it goes. Some days I swear I'm getting vitality and health. And those of you who've watched every Wednesday, you've been watching my progress over the last year and a half when we've been doing these shows. And some people have come back on and say, wow, you look so healthy and alive now, Dave, recognizing what I used to look like and what I was saying before. But it never ends. As those of you who watched a couple of weeks ago, I lost my left kidney. So another organ disappeared. So, now we're doing scans on my lungs. So we're trying to deal with it. And I reveal these things. Some people say TMI. I say, no, I want people to know that you can be going through some kind of ongoing treatment and yet still live life, enjoying every moment, dealing with what you've got today. And I love our Wednesdays because I know I get to talk to other people on the journey similar to mine, and we're helping one another. You don't want to see me on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. Some of those days are not good days. But on Wednesday afternoon, and now on Sunday afternoon, because a good friend of mine, Pat Wetzel, has her show all about all things cancer at 1 p.m. Pacific time, and I can get to go on that show and be again with other people. And there's 2 or 3 other people that I know that I'm working with right now to put their shows on. So hopefully we're going to have different people every day of the week who are helping people deal with the transition from that diagnosis all the way to wellness. And you can make it. You can get through this category 20 hurricane, and life takes on a totally different meaning when you're having good days.
Right.
No doubt. And I'd be curious to hear from the audience, how they felt after they completed, if they have completed treatment for cancer, and, did they feel like the doctors, there was a plan for them, or did they feel alone? I'm curious, what some of the audience members, what they have to say about that.
And for those watching the replay,
so
please participate on the replay. Yes, I know the text chat is shut after the session, but on findyournewnormal.com, there's a page called Ask Dave. And in there, you can leave your comments, participate in the discussion that we're having, and interact with us. And we look at all the information that you're sharing. We'll respond directly back to you, or on the next show, we'll make that part of the things that we're talking about. In fact, I've been thinking, well, why can't we have a mailbag, every week, bringing up people who are have something to say. And it soon will be able to be on video for those of you out there. There's going to be a new facility on Blab that will allow us to play videos in these windows. And that will allow you to leave a video message that you can leave that for us. We'll review it and play it and interact. So we're just trying to find a way to support you and to direct you to the right resources. And there are wonderful people like Hayley and Beth, and they're both in our Cancer Coach directory that you'll find on Find Your New Normal. So either interact with us right now on the text chat or on the replay. We're there. We're here every Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern, and we'll respond to whatever we can do to make the journey easier for you to ride.
And to your question, Hayley, while we're waiting for some of the audience to respond, I know, again, in the U.S., it seems like in the past, there wasn't much in the way of creating a plan after treatments were ended. But it's my understanding with the Affordable Care Act that that's one of the components that's now part of the best practices and maybe even required for people who have finished treatment to have their healthcare team put together some kind of aftercare plan for them. Have you heard anything more about that in recent times?
I have heard about that, but with the clients I see right now, it's not really happening, but maybe it's in the process of happening. So yeah, I was curious to hear, maybe others have better experiences with it, and hopefully, because I think that's great and I think it's so needed.
Did you guys see the question from Miss Lynn in the text chat? I'll just bring it up onto the screen. It's an interesting twist in our conversation. She was saying she didn't have cancer, but was lost after a family member died, and found that group settings really weren't for her. What's your response to that comment?
That was exactly my reaction for myself. I went to one support group meeting and I got the information I needed, but I couldn't relate to the group setting. It just wasn't for me. So for me, I would have really appreciated having a cancer coach to work with, to have someone to talk to rather than the group setting. So I totally understand where
And should it be face-to-face, or can it be done on the phone, or can it be done over Skype? I mean, are those methods as effective as face-to-face?
I personally enjoy meeting face-to-face at least a couple of times if it's possible. If that's not possible, then I Skype, FaceTime, any of the other technologies that are available can make it more comfortable. I personally have had coaches who I've never met face-to-face. They've been across the country. So I know for myself, it can be by phone and still be perfectly worthwhile. And I think it really depends on the individual.
Hayley, a comment on that?
Yeah, I was going to say, I agree. I currently do phone, Skype, and in person, and it really seems to work well. I give PDFs. We do recipes and all kinds of things, as you heard me say about journaling and all that, those kind of exercises. So it's very doable. You get to impact more people if you can do it anywhere. And, but it depends on the person, just like Beth said.
Hopefully, Miss Lynn, that answers somewhat of the question. It still is that subtext of I'm lost. And it's an interesting feeling, certainly in my case and other cancer patients that I continually talk with, is that feeling of being lost, not feeling of loss. There's a feeling of loss for sure, but LOST, being lost in the journey is discomforting. And in some cases, some of us, including myself, we have PTSD. I wake up at 3:00 in the morning, swearing that I'm still in hospital, looking for the nurse, looking for my bedside table. I'm transported into mental imageries that were traumatic years ago that, 3.5 years ago, and still present in my life today. And I wake up and then I'm even more confused. Where am I? What's going on? Can I not move forward? How do I move forward? How can I take some baby steps? Oh, yeah, fine. I'll get my gratitude journal out. Oh, I'll be calm. Oh, I'll meditate. Oh, I'll do all these things that I've trained myself to do. But I have to do it to cope with this ongoing feeling of being lost and wanting to get out of the forest and can't seem to find a way. And thank goodness there are people like you guys who are my friends. And every week you share all kinds of advice and I take all kinds of notes. Even though it's not directed to me, I know our audience is getting something by what you wonderful folks share, because it makes a difference in my life. I am learning what to do by listening to what you professionals do as professional cancer coaches. So,
and there's something that I'd just like to comment on, the audience comment that was made, and that is that close friends and family members I consider to be co-survivors, because they're not personally experiencing the physicality of the issues, but they're there with you. And so they are going through their own traumatic experience with a loved one who they might lose. And so there is that whole post-traumatic stress syndrome or whatever possible for the co-survivors as well as the survivors. And I think that there's a need to provide them with the same kind of resources and support that survivors get, because they're definitely going through it. And they too just want things to go back to normal, right?
Go back to normal. That's right. Doesn't happen. Does not happen.
It's the new normal that we create.
New normal you have to create. And that's so hard, because your comfort zone is in the past. It's your vision of who you were and what you did and what you want to go and do again. And you're saying, but I can't and I shouldn't and I won't. And you got to get through all of that to create a new world. I mean, might as well go to Mars and start all over again. I mean, this is a...
Starting your new habits, the things that you want to do in your life, the new things that you can do. When you think about, okay, for example, I've had 2 back surgeries. I don't jog anymore. I used to think that running was the most efficient exercise there was, and it was great weight control too. So I did it for a variety of reasons. And after 2 back surgeries, now I walk. So that's an accommodation that I've had to make because of my physical constraints at this point. I don't want to risk having another back surgery, so I'm just not going there. But that's one of the things. It's an adjustment. It's an adaptability that we have to say, okay, I can't do that anymore, but what can I do? What can I focus on?
That's good. What
are the things that I love to do that I can do? Maybe I love to cook. So what can I cook that gives me pleasure? Or maybe my mom loves to sew. So what can she sew that gives her pleasure? Well, she loves to to create doll clothes for her grandchildren. So, do what you can, do what you are able to do, and focus there to create that new set of habits, the new lifestyle that still includes the things that you enjoy, even though it's different. It's new.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
I hope Hayley comes back. And if you're listening to us, Hayley, you are not here with us. You may be thinking you are, but you're in the past. We're in some other place now. So refresh your browser and come back in and join us. And Lynn, Miss Lynn, you're leaving us. Thanks. Pick up your kids, but I know you'll be back next week. And hopefully Hayley will jump in again. There she is.
I am. Oh my goodness. My Wi-Fi for some reason is turning on and off. I don't know why.
It does that. It's
so sorry about that.
Technology does. Yeah. But hey, as we said, you can get through that. You've been through cancer. So, I mean, what is a Wi-Fi problem?
Right. Don't sweat the small stuff.
Don't sweat it. And that's a good place to wrap up because you're back. And we'll go off the air because there are some people in the audience who don't like to be on camera, but they want to talk to us. So don't leave us. But let's close up the formal part of today's show with Beth. If you could make a final comment, and then over to Hayley, and then I'll turn off the recording. So Beth, make your final comments to our audience.
Well, I would just like to thank you, Dave, for putting this together. This is a great forum, and it seems a little bit easier than Google Hangouts. So I might actually take your advice and do some of this myself as well. I do invite people to contact me if they're interested in being interviewed for my book. I really want to interview another 20 people before I start compiling all the data and writing the book and including all the stories and so forth for those who want to share their stories. There is a privacy factor and that I honor. So for some people, they want to tell their stories and find it therapeutic to have someone who understands to listen to them. So I invite anyone who wants to
your URL in the text chat or your email.
Yes, I will do that.
To contact you. So
and again, from the standpoint of finding your own new normal, focus on what you can do. Focus on what still lights you up and that you can focus on that will become part of your new normal, as opposed to regretting what you no longer can do.
For sure.
That's part of life and in the long term anyway.
Thanks, Beth.
I love that.
Today. That was good. And over to you, Hayley. What comments would you like to say to our audience as we close out the formal portion of the show?
Yeah, well, we talked a lot about getting support and not feeling alone, but I also think it's so important to listen to your body's inner wisdom, because we don't realize that we have inner wisdom in our bodies. When something's not going right, they're trying to tell us something. So, really look deep inside yourself and look at what you want and how you can move forward in the best way possible. And I just wanted to let the audience know that they can go to my website at revivewellness.com, and I'll put it in the chat, to get my 7 top tips to keep cancer away. And if anyone wants to contact me, they could just go to the Start Today tab and leave their contact information. I'd be happy to get in touch with you. So thanks again. And Beth, thank you so much. You were great. And I'm very interested in your book. So we'll have to talk further.
Thank you.
And I think we need lots of props over to Hayley. This was her first inaugural launch as a co-host on the show. Really glad you were here. It's good to have, your perspective, and it was well done. Thank you very much for your help. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Dave.
So, folks, thanks very much for coming in today. We really appreciate you spending your time with us. Hope you found it valuable, either live or on the replay, and you'll come back on Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time and we'll just carry on the topic. And as I said earlier, next week will be a continuation of this by introducing Bill to you and what he's been doing with his book. And Paula, I hope you get your technology sorted out. If not, give me a call and I'll help you get your technology sorted out, because you have a message that should be shared. And it would be good to have you on air and let folks know what you're doing. There are so many wonderful people out there. We've probably got maybe 20 people that are in our schedule right now that we're trying to arrange to come into our shows. So lots of interesting perspectives, all designed to, just put an arm around you and help you through this incredibly strange and meandering roller coaster that we're on. Nikki Barr is coming in a couple of weeks, and I can hardly wait to have her on, because she had that book on how to get off the emotional roller coaster. Really looking forward to that. So once again, thank you all for coming. See you again next Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And I'll turn off the camera. Wish you all well. But we're going to still be here to answer some questions if any of you want to hang in. So thanks very much. See you again next week.
Thank you.